Today I'm joined by my right-hand man, Matt. He joined my coaching program back in August of 2025, where he built his own dropshipping brand. Very quickly, he was able to scale that brand into consistent recurring monthly revenue, so much so that he caught my attention and I decided to invite him inside of the coaching program to assist some of the other students as our client success manager. Not long after that, I also invited him to start working a bit more closely with me on my brand as well. So some exciting times ahead for 2026 for sure. Now, in this video, what we wanted to do was essentially just go through some common misconceptions that we see about the dropshipping space in 2026. Now, to give a little bit more context about myself, I've been dropshipping or been in e-commerce for 6 years. I've worked all sides of the coin. I've had an e-commerce brand. I've worked as an agency, Google Ads agency, serving e-commerce business owners, and also been a coach for many, many years. So you can see that I have a versatile degree on e-commerce from almost every possible angle. At the moment, I'm running up a new e-commerce brand that I launched 10 months ago. It recently crossed over $1 million in revenue at a 44% net profit margin. So today, what we're going to do is list off some common questions that me and Matt see, things that typically prevent people from moving forward, misconceptions in the space, and Matt's collated some questions. We're going to lay them off one by one, and by the end of this video, you should have everything you need to start building the life that you want by simply selling products online. Because one of the most common things that we see with this business model is people have a tendency to overcomplicate it. And in its simplest form, all we're doing is e-commerce, which is selling products online. And we're going to break that down for you in today's video.
Great. So basically what I did is I gathered all of the most common questions that you guys have, both viewing the YouTube videos that Theo creates, but also when you're reaching out and asking Theo regarding the mentorship program, the method and whatnot. So hopefully you will find it super useful. So we have a list of questions that are the most relevant, most likely for you. And let's go through them one by one.
Yep.
Starting with the first one, which is maybe like a nice little kickoff for the whole list of questions, which is basically in your videos, you talk about high ticket branded Google Ads dropshipping, which is a mouthful. What does it mean, high ticket, and what does it mean branded?
Yeah, good first question, and you're right, it is a bit of a mouthful, but they're not words that have just been thrown together. They actually, each word as part of that explanation or description actually has intent behind it. So first and foremost, what are we doing with dropshipping? Which is simply sending products from the supplier to the customer without you personally, as the retailer or the business owner or the advertiser, ever coming into contact with the product. So in that sense, dropshipping is a business model that's incredibly low risk, high reward, because we're simply using the suppliers as the fulfillment. So that's the dropshipping part. Then we get on to high ticket. So what do we mean by high ticket? Well, I like to sell products that are $100 plus in value. Why? Because cost of advertising is increasing month on month, year after year, as more people are transitioning into the online space. You only need to take a look at Meta or at Google and the advertising costs and how they've changed over time to see that that is a fact. Advertising is getting more expensive because these platforms operate like an auction, okay, which means advertisers are all bidding and competing against one another. So how do you combat that? Well, simply sell higher price point products, which means you have more profit left over per sale. Then we're going to break down what do we mean by branded. And this is a word that gets thrown around a lot, right? What is branded dropshipping? What does it actually mean? Now, it's more than just simply adding some fancy packaging. It's about the customer experience. If you think about when you walk into an Apple store, for example, they've completely turned around the conventional way of shopping to the point where they've created this whole experience when you walk into the store, right? Like you don't really know what's going on. There's tables everywhere. You can't quite figure it out. You have to stand in a line. Then they sit you down at another table. They've created something that's unique and you feel a certain way when you're in the store and when you purchase or use their products. And they've been able to build something that customers come back year after year buying the new product when in reality, they're barely any different from the one before. So we want to create something that provides our customers with a unique experience. And that is the difference. It's more than just packaging. It's how you treat the customer, how you communicate with them on your website, in your emails, at every stage of the customer journey, pre-purchase and post-purchase.
Exactly.
So that is what we mean by branding.
And also, like to expand on that, would you then say that that's the main reason also to why you do yourself and why you promote high ticket compared to low ticket? Because there's a lot of people who are like, why would I do high ticket if I can sell more of low ticket products and just get the volume?
Oh, I see. Because of the price point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think we've all, I think most of us have all spent more than $100 online at some point or another, right? If you think back, if you go back through your, bank transaction summary, you'll see there will be times where you've ordered things online and they cost more than that. I mean, even these days, if you're buying like supplements from the gym, you can buy some creatine, some cod liver oil, a few other things. Before you know it, it's well over $100, right? And that's on a month-to-month basis. So even if you're buying lower price point products, it's still not that uncommon to spend more than $100. So I think that's just a misconception. There are plenty of people out there shopping every single day online, spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars, some even spending thousands of dollars in a single purchase. So there's always going to be somewhere out there or someone out there that will buy the product as long as you've positioned yourself well in the market. That's what I would say.
Yeah, and also like probably like with high ticket, you how many sales of that you need to actually make like decent life-changing profit, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if we're to run through some numbers as an example, it's very common, say, on most dropshipping stores for people to sell $30 to $50 products, right? Why? Because most of the time they're leveraging Meta, which is a completely different ball game as opposed to Google, which we'll talk more about, later in this video. So, something I'm obviously a big advocate of. But Meta ads, you're trying to sell to people that are on the platform to be entertained. When someone's scrolling on Meta on their phone, they're looking to be entertained. They're not going there to buy something, right? Like when you buy something online or I buy it, we typically go to Google, and as does everyone else. So that's the difference. People are typically selling lower price point products on Meta. Some people do it on Google as well. And you have to get so many sales to even make a bit of profit, which because people are having to generate tons and tons of sales and acquire loads of new customers over and over again, it then means their margins are very thin. It's common for like 10 to 20% maybe net profit margin from Meta ads, low ticket drop shipping, which is why we spin it on its head and we do high ticket drop shipping and we leverage Google ads, which, I'll talk more about later in this video.
Yeah, exactly. Like one of the most common questions is exactly that. So people like ask you why Google specifically, if not just you can, Meta is it's much more popular on social media also to promote to do this model. But what is the main difference? Why do you prefer Google specifically?
Well, Google is a search engine. It's where people go when they typically want to buy things. I say typically because, yes, some people shop through Meta, but like I explained earlier, you don't pull out your phone and go to Instagram when you want to buy something. You type it in Google, right? So that means when someone is typing in a particular term in Google, they're showing intent. They've gone to the platform, they've gone to the search engine, they've typed in the name of a product, and then right beneath that, you're going to get an advertiser then showing Google shopping listings, Google search listings for and relevant to that particular product. So the customer comes to you the same way they would walk into a physical brick and mortar store and say, hey, I'm looking for product A. They're doing the same thing on Google in the search engine. And then you're able to position your product as the solution to the particular thing that they're looking for. So that's why it works so well. You typically have a higher conversion rate because customers already know what they're looking for. Higher intent means higher conversion rate for you and lower advertising costs. The other thing is the way in which the platform bills. Meta charge based on your what's called your CPM, your cost per 1,000 views, which means on Meta, you're paying for views regardless as whether or not someone actually converts. Whereas on Google, you pay per click, which is why it's also known as PPC advertising. So you're charged based on your cost per click. So it doesn't actually cost anything to show an ad on Google until someone actually physically clicks on your ad. So that also means that your advertising cost is typically lower, which means you have more profit left over. Combine that with higher price point products that are $100 plus as well, and then you've got a really, really healthy profit margin. So earlier when I said I've done over $1 million in revenue with my most recent brand in 10 months, I did that with a 44% net profit margin. Compare that to what most people are doing with Meta ads and lower price point products where they're getting 10 to 20% net profit margins. Same process, but much more profit. If you're going to do the work, you may as well do the one that you get 2, 3, 4 times as much profit than doing more work and creative testing and iterating on Meta, right? It's just completely different, which is what I should summarize as well. On Google, there's no creative testing as such on the shopping network and the search. You just need a product title, an image, and a price point. So it's very easy to list more products. It's very quick, and there's much less testing involved.
But that's exactly what I love about this method, that not only you target people that have high intent, but also you as an entrepreneur behind the business, you don't spend your days like creating different ads, constantly testing new angles. I need to create like 8 new angles, launch those campaigns. You set up the campaigns, once, you adjust them, once, maybe every day, maybe every second day, and that's it. So you also as the operator behind the business, you pretty much, so much like freed up from the business itself.
That's one thing you'll hear a lot from anyone that does Google Ads and generates sales for their e-commerce business through Google Ads. They will always say how consistent it is through such little effort of their own, right? If you compare it to the typical trap that most dropshippers fall into when they're doing meta ads dropshipping, it's constant creative iteration, tons of different images and videos. Sure, you know, with AI these days in 2026, it's sped up that process, but what it's also done is it's separated the gap even more between beginners and people know what they're doing, right? The guys that truly know how to leverage AI and iterate creatives and actually have cash flow and can build team members are the ones that are going to get ahead, not the new dropshipper coming in trying to do everything on a budget. You have little to no chance, you know. But with Google, you can skip past all of that. There's no creative testing, and you have just as much chance of being successful as anyone else on the Google Shopping or the search network. So it's a level playing field for anyone, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced. Obviously, there are tricks that people that are advanced going to play just based on their experience that will allow them to get further ahead and differentiate themselves. There's many different ways to do that, but at least from the get-go, you don't have to worry about how well your creatives are going to convert, how much money you're going to spend on ad spend before you actually generate a sale or find your first, winning product. It's much, much easier and quicker to find success through Google because naturally the customers come to you. You only pay when they click on their ad and there's higher intent. So it's much easier to get to the point in which you're seeing conversions consistently and actually beginning to scale profitably. That's the difference.
Yeah, exactly. So the natural next question is basically, how do you find those high ticket products? And I don't want you to go into detail when it comes to the method that you're teaching, because you have plenty of videos about that. I want rather to hit on the misconception, which I hear a lot from people that contact you, and that is, isn't all of the better products saturated? Isn't that like something that used to be good, or aren't all of the good ones already taken?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll break down like the typical process that most people go through and then what we do and why it's different and why you're able to still find opportunity. So even still in 2026, which is just beyond me, the typical strategy to finding new products is go to Meta Ad Library or use some kind of spy tool to see what creatives are performing well, steal someone else's product, launch it in a new market, and hope that you see success. The thing with that strategy that people don't take into consideration is, first and foremost, when you take someone else's creatives, there's no guarantee that that's also going to work well for you because they've got a seasoned pixel, they've got tons of data, and they have access to so much more information that you are otherwise not going to see, right? And actually a seasoned pixel means more and affects the campaign's performance more than what most people think. So that's step number one. Two, if you steal someone else's product and creatives, it's possible that they may have even got a patent on that product if it's protected technology or something like that. Or if you steal their ads and their creatives, you're basically stealing their IP, right? Because that's intellectual property that they've created. So then they can go after you, they can get your Shopify store shut down. That's why you see a lot of these stores these days that people claim to be, building dropshipping brands, and all they're doing is stealing what someone else is doing, then get shut down 1 week, 1 month later. And it's just this constant pump and dump iteration or a cash grab, You'll often see people explaining how you can speed run a store in 24 hours. That's because they're doing that. They're just stealing, right? What we do and what's different is we use what I call the 4-step product validation method. It's a strategy that I've developed over the past 6 years or 5.5 years that I've been in the e-commerce industry. We find products that have high search demand, low competition, products that are evergreen, and products that have a high profit potential. We validate search demand using Google Keyword Planner, completely free tool. You can check it out online. We check how much competition there is on Google, again, using Google Keyword Planner. It will tell you how many people every single month are searching for a particular product, and also what you could expect to pay as a cost per click as an advertiser. Then we also look at Google Shopping as well to see how many people we're competing against or will be competing against in the auction. Then when it comes to whether or not a product is evergreen and can be sold year round, we use Google Trends. That's going to show us essentially a graph over the past 5 years or even back as far as 2004, how this product has performed over time. So you can see if it's consistent or if it's something that's seasonal. You want something that's obviously consistent because we want to sell products that we can generate cash flow from 24/7, 365. Lastly, high profit potential. This is the last step really, and it comes when you reach out to a private agent, you source your products, they tell you the product cost, the shipping cost, and then you can calculate any transaction fees. Typically, you want your cost of goods to be 25% of the price that you're selling the product at. Okay, so for example, your product cost, your shipping cost, and any transaction fees that you have to accept the payment should be no more than about 25% of your total selling price that you're selling the product at. So that's something to keep in mind. Obviously, your ad spend is going to be deducted from your overall profit as well. but that's the process that we follow. And what I will say, and I will drop in there as well, is if you want more information on how the 4-step product validation method works, I have a free Google Ads dropshipping group. I'll drop the link in the video description. It's completely free to join, and I break down my exact product research process so you can follow it step by step. I show you how to use all of the tools, do all of the training, and then you can actually find products that you can launch and bring to market yourself. So if you want more of a deep dive on that, see the link in the video description. It's completely free.
Nice. And what do you say to people that might come up with kind of like, I want to say, like, I think it's a limiting belief, because a lot of people say that maybe most of the products are already taken, that are saturated and whatnot. I don't think people really realize how big ecom is, how many niches there are. So when you promote, for example, niche specific branded stores, it seems like a lot of people have this issue of like, yeah, but you know, all of the good ideas are already taken. But I don't think they realize how vast ecom is and how many products there are, just like you're surrounded by them, you know, everywhere. Every day there's so many products that you can sell.
Yeah, like you said, it's a limiting belief, but that's why we use tools to validate products before we even bring them to market, to check search demand versus level of competition, estimated cost per click, and we can work backwards from the numbers. So we'll be able to do what I would call a simple maths equation to calculate whether or not there's opportunity in this particular market just based on the cost per click, your estimated conversion rate, and the price of the product that you're selling. Very, very simple to calculate. For example, let's just say you had a 2% conversion rate, which is pretty standard within e-commerce, right? Like you want to be there or thereabouts. If you're above, greater. If you're a little bit less, not a problem, but 2 is pretty standard. Now, let's say you're selling products that are $100 each. You know that your product and shipping cost should be 25% of that, like I explained earlier. So it should be around about 25%, which would be $25 of $100. That means you've got $75 margin to generate a sale. Now let's assume that you check Google Keyword Planner and you see that your cost per click is going to be 50 cents, right? Well, you know your conversion rate is 2%, which means for every 100 clicks on Google, every 100 visitors you send to your site, you generate 2 conversions, which means you need 50 clicks to generate 1 conversion. If Google Keyword Planner gives you your estimated cost per click at 50 cents, then you'd do 50 clicks times 50 cents, that would be $25. That's going to be your cost per acquisition based on a 2% conversion rate. So now you know your product and shipping cost is 25%. You know that your cost per acquisition, your cost per sale is $25, and your product price is $100. So you've got a $50 profit potential and a 50% gross profit margin. So that is an immediate indicator that you can enter that market and do so profitably just based on those simple numbers there and that very simple calculation. But like we said earlier, what most people do is pull up Meta ad library, steal an ad for a competitor, spend $500, realize it doesn't work, say dropshipping isn't working, and quit and never try again. But it's just because the fundamentals aren't there. You know, all the data you need to be able to make an educated decision as to whether or not you should bring a product to market is there, yet no one uses it.
Yeah. And I think it's also the way you would think about it and the way you teach it is really based on data rather than feelings. Where I think a lot of people get lost and they start thinking, I have this idea. It doesn't matter what's your idea. Like, look at the data, analyze that like Theo does, and it works way better. Surprise, right?
Yeah. I always say the truth can be found in the numbers, right? Numbers don't lie. So just trust in the data. It will always show you what you need to do and whether or not something is going to be viable in the numbers, you know?
Yeah, great. So you already touched on the next question a little bit, but a lot of people do wonder about that. How do you actually fulfill those items?
So when it comes to fulfillment, we always partner with a private agent, okay? So they're essentially an extension of your business. They're your eyes and ears on the ground in China. They have access to a huge supplier network because they're Chinese native, they live there. So you go to them with a particular product that you want them to source. They will then reach out to the suppliers in their network, provide you with product quotes for these particular products. They'll tell you what the product cost will be, the shipping cost, how long it's going to take to get to your destination country. And if you want as well, what you can do past that point is ask them to send the product to their location so they can actually quality test it, make sure it's actually high quality. That's another benefit of having an agent in China external to the supplier, because the supplier is going to tell you what they think you want to hear, right, to get you onboarded as a client, as a customer. They'll tell you the shipping time is 4 to 5 days, not 5 to 10. They'll tell you that they're using X materials when maybe they're not. You know, so the job of the private agent is to verify all of that for you, make sure that they can trust the supplier, make sure that it's someone that's trustworthy, and you ultimately trust them to get the product to the customer. So not only are they going to source the product for you, but the agent will also handle fulfillment as well. It's a very important step, really, in actually building the foundation of your business. So always work with verified private agents, you know.
It is. And what do you say to people that say, why cannot just use Zendrop or, some other platforms to fulfill those orders?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to Zendrop. You can use Zendrop, you can use AliExpress if you want, but the problem you'll face is pretty much what I just said, you know?
Yeah.
First of all, Zendrop doesn't give you any support unless you're on, I think, like their pro plan, unless
Mm.
they've recently changed something. So you've got no one to talk to. My private agent is in a WhatsApp channel directly with me and integrated with the rest of the team. So they're communicating as a team member or as team members as to like what the next steps are, what needs to be done, any product quality issues, whatever. The team is dealing with it. If you don't have an open line of communication, or if your supplier is native Chinese and you can't get in contact with them, then you're never going to be able to build a proper relationship with them. It's important that you build a good, strong relationship, a good foundation. And for that reason, I always like to work with a private agent, you know?
Yeah. Like you said, I think, like to me before, like a good agent can really make or break your business, really.
Yeah.
And I think like a lot of people don't really realize how important it is to have that, And also like a little bit on that, on the same point about high ticket and agents, I note down a question that we do get a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of curious if you can answer that in your voice the best way, which is, how do you make sure that you don't sell junk? Because a lot of people don't want to sell and scam people online. Like 95% of drop shippers out there, let's be honest, sell junk.
Yeah.
And they profit on that. They show revenue numbers, and it's great. No judgment, but a lot of people don't want to do that. They want to build a legitimate brand. They want to provide with good quality, items. So how would you answer that, or how do you make sure what you're selling isn't junk? And I guess you answered it already a little bit about the agents, maybe.
Yeah.
How would you answer that?
So yeah, a lot of the people that do join the program or our particular mentorship program are often quite alike. They're authentic people, they want to build a legit business, they want something they can be proud of. They've maybe tried fashion dropshipping or general store dropshipping, had loads of customer complaints, chargebacks, and they're basically fighting to keep their payment processes open. It doesn't feel good because the customers are unhappy, and it just creates a lot of problems, and you're basically fighting to keep the business alive, and it shouldn't really be like that, right? Like I said earlier, what we want to do is build a brand, and that means from the inside out and from the bottom up. So to do that and to differentiate yourself, you need to source high quality products. You need to work closely with an agent who's going to check the quality of the products that you're selling. But also remember, we're selling high ticket products, $100 plus, which means if your product and your shipping cost is $25, that's going to be much better quality than selling $30 to $50 low ticket, low quality junk where the product cost is maybe $5, if that. Right, you're going to be spending way more on shipping than you even spend on the product. So that's reflected in the quality. So selling high ticket and working with a private agent is a good way to ensure product quality remains high and customer satisfaction is there as well.
Okay, great. So once you make sure that the products that you're selling are good quality, now we enter this topic of branded, right? So branded dropshipping. So how do you go about it? How do you go about branding your products?
Yeah, so it's much simpler than what most people think. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, though, branding isn't just talking about the products themselves. There are things that we will do to the products to begin to brand them, such as personalized packaging, adding notes within the orders, customizing the products, and basically just making the purchase experience more exciting for the customer when they receive the product. But branding doesn't start and end there. I will explain how that is done first of all, though, and then explain the different sides to branding as well. So first and foremost, you would leverage your private agent. Okay, like I said, they're your eyes and ears on the ground in China. Supplies is important so you can optimize and improve the product and start customizing it. They'll say, hey, we want to make this change or that change based on customer feedback and customer dissatisfaction. So that's going to be the way that you make changes to start customizing the product. You'll also reach out to the supplier, maybe get molds made so you can start adding logos to the products, just to build an all-round better experience and start building more of a brand within a particular niche. So those are things you're going to do at that kind of level. It's also possible that suppliers may be providing packaging as well for the products, so you can start getting your brand logo and colors put on the packaging as well. You'll know if you've ever bought anything online, or just using the Apple iPhone example, it comes in a branded box, everything's very slick, it's exciting when you open it, right? It's not just some cardboard box that's been sent from Amazon. That's the difference, right? Amazon's brand is built on speed and customer satisfaction, from like ability to return products, get things very quickly. We don't have that benefit in dropshipping. The lead time is typically a little bit longer, so we need to make more of an experience for the customer. We need to really focus on branding, a bit like Apple have done. But that also comes outside of just customizing products. It's the actual customer experience, how they feel on the website, whether or not they feel spoken to, what the post-purchase experience feels like, whether they're receiving emails between the point of order and point of receiving the product. So there's a lot of things that you can do to really start to position yourself as a brand, and it doesn't always just mean mean adding some colored packaging, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And what I love about this method is that, for example, on my brand, I receive 5-star reviews on Trustpilot. Which, how often do you hear about dropshipper getting 5-star reviews on his store, and happy like customer emails that refers to another customer and whatnot? That is not happening oftentimes if you sell junk.
Yeah.
I mean, surprise, surprise, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think your brand is also doing pretty good when it comes to Trustpilot, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. 5-star reviews. Obviously, as with all businesses, you get the odd customer who drops a 1-star, but there were people that were just being completely unreasonable from the get-go. You could have given them any experience and they're still going to come back and put a bad review. But typically, 4.5 to 5-star.
Yeah.
So.
Pretty sick. Okay, next question is I think my favorite one on this list, and that is regarding maybe a little bit of going back in time and putting yourself back several years. Let's say we go back 3 years in time, and with the knowledge that you have today, what would you do differently to reach 100K profits months like now?
Well, to be honest, I would have just followed the similar system and the strategy that we just spoke about, really, and probably just got there a lot quicker. Because it's taken me many years to develop this system,
6
and
years
now
now, right?
6 years in ecom. Yeah. Prior to that, I was working construction, completely different life. So it was quite not a tough transition, but it took me time, especially because I didn't have the knowledge that I have now. So if I were to go back 3 years, I would have just done what I'm doing now with my most recent brand so much quicker. But obviously, hindsight is a wonderful thing, right? I probably would have bought a lot of Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, same here. That's for sure. So another question is also from some of the viewers, just like the previous one, that wonder a little bit, wants to know your take on how to build those businesses. And this question is regarding time. A lot of people have a job. A lot of people have a family. Maybe they go to school, university, whatnot. So the question is, how much time do you realistically need to build a profitable dropshipping store similar to yours, or the ones that has that potential?
Well, like you said, everyone's in a slightly different situation, right? Some people have families, some people have, long hours, some people work daytime and evening, maybe they're managing multiple jobs. What I normally say to people that ask about joining the program, how much time they need to invest to make something that's actually successful, I often say it's just totally dependent on you and your current situation. Like, the most important thing is building a routine or a schedule around something that works for you, okay? It does not mean you have to spend an hour a day or 3 hours a day every day, but what you do need to do is be careful about how you spend that hour, okay? Sitting at your desk for an hour or 3 hours doesn't automatically make you productive, okay? But spending an hour or 3 hours on the right thing and focused deep work, that's what's going to allow you to get ahead, right? So I often liken it to like going to the gym, for example. If you were going to join the gym because you wanted to lose weight, you wouldn't just cram in a 5-hour session on a Sunday, would you? Like, you could try, but it's not very sustainable and it's not going to work for the rest of the week. You need consistency, right? So the most important thing is you find a way to go 3 times a week, 5 times a week. And it's the same with building a business, all right? Better to do consistent work regularly and work towards reaching that goal, because that's going to allow you to build momentum. Momentum is important because you're going to be able to feel like you keep moving forwards, and it's important to feel like you're moving forwards because you need to feel like you're making progress. Otherwise, again, you're going to become disheartened. I don't have time for this. I'm not getting anywhere. But it's because they don't know how to do the right thing or what to do at the right time, and also, they're maybe not spending time on the right things, which leads to inactivity. Things aren't moving forwards, and then they ultimately give up on it because they've been trying this thing for months and they're not able to get ahead because they simply don't know what they're doing. So that's a big problem. In short, find a way to fit it into your routine in a way that is sustainable and works for you. That's the best advice I can give.
Yeah, I think you will also agree if I add on top of that initially you need a little bit more time, but once the systems are created, once the business is already functioning, it requires even less and less time, right?
Yeah, that's true. Obviously, most of the work goes into the initial build and learning the new skills, because there's a lot you need to learn, product research, building a website, setting up campaigns. There's a lot of individual high income skills. Like I said earlier, I owned a Google Ads agency for 2.5 years, something like that. There's a lot of work that goes into that in itself, and that in itself is a high income skill, as is email marketing, as is building websites. There's a lot of skills here that are high income, and you're going to learn all of them when you build an e-commerce store. I think at the start, you need to learn how to wear many different hats. You need to be a true business operator. It's much easier to do if you're just following someone who's already walked the path before you, because they can just show you exactly how to do everything in a systematic way that it doesn't feel overwhelming. But if you try and take it on at your own, you try and do all these different things at once, you're just gonna, good luck. Good luck to anyone that tries. And I don't mean that in a way that's like, condescending. It's a lot. So, but once you get past that stage, that's where you start to enjoy the fruits of your labor. As with anything, you've built a store, it's generating consistent profitably. And nowadays I spend as little as about 3 hours a week, genuinely. And most of that time is just overseeing conversations between team members, stepping in where I need to, analyzing the Google ad account, optimizing the campaigns, and then reviewing any areas for opportunity and more growth. Should probably spend a little bit more time on my store. I would probably be doing a lot more numbers, which is what the goal is of this year. So we'll get there.
We're gonna smash it, but not bad for 3 hours a week. It's not bad for a $1 million brand.
That's true. Yeah.
But it's all because of the model itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So another question is a little bit interesting. How do I know from somebody who is interested in method? How do they know if the method is right for them? So if they're the right person to do it. Some people are not passionate about dropshipping, but they are looking for a way to make money online, right? To get free. So how would you answer that one?
Yeah, I would just say optimize for profit over passion, because at the end of the day, most people that want to get into dropshipping, typically, if you're anything like myself, are working a job where they feel underpaid, underappreciated, and ultimately unfulfilled. Like I said, I worked 8 years in construction. It was a tough grind, manual labor every day in the sun, in the wind, in the rain. It doesn't matter. You're out there on that construction site working, regardless of whether or not you want to. I don't think many people go into construction because they're passionate about construction. They do it, like I did, because they just see it as an opportunity to begin earning money. Then I stumbled across dropshipping back in 2020, and I saw that as a better opportunity where I can live a remote lifestyle. I can build an asset that generates me cash flow consistently year round, 247, 365. So with that, I can then achieve financial freedom. So for me, it was all of those things. If you want time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom, then it's the perfect business model. We're in Bali at the moment. My store's being operated from team members in the Philippines and my agents in China. And I'm able to sit here recording this video with you and still generate sales on my store whilst doing something else. So it's for anyone that truly wants to detach their time from the amount of money that they're able to make. So I'm passionate about that. That's what I'm passionate about, being able to make money and live my life, regardless of, what I'm selling. So that's the way I would look at it, the type of freedom that it can give you.
I can just add on from my own private experience is that you become quite passionate about the products you sell when you start seeing green and money coming in, and like, oh man, I love this product. Because as you remember from my start, when I joined the program and I went through it, I was like a little bit skeptical, whether I should go for that specific niche of products. And I was like, I don't know, I don't feel those products. And you were like, man, just trust me. And I did. And when I started getting those high ticket sales, I was like, okay, I actually like this a lot.
Yeah.
Then you become passionate about it.
Exactly.
Let's say that somebody goes for it. They make a decision. Okay, let's start it. How much money do they need to start a Google store like that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, dropshipping is low risk, high reward, not high risk, low reward. So, in that sense, there's not much upfront investment that you need to put into actually launching a store. There are a few things that come to mind. First and foremost is you're going to need to buy a domain. So, www.yourstore.com. That costs typically like $12 per year. So I don't know if you can even really count that as a cost. You're also going to want a business phone number. Same thing. I think it's like $5 a month. And, again, if you want to consider that as a cost, you can do, but you need these things to be able to do the business. Regardless of what business you launch, you need a phone number, you need a website. In addition to that, you're going to need a Shopify theme. Shopify is the platform that we use to host our websites on. It's where we send all of our web traffic to in order to sell them the products. You can get 3 months subscription for like $1 a month. After that, I think it's about $30 a month. So again, that's a recurring cost that you need to take into consideration. But even still, all of those combined, less than $30 a month, $35 a month, basically, and it's the cost of doing business. Past that point, you have your advertising spend. So the money that you're going to spend on Google Ads to actually start generating sales. What I recommend is putting aside around about $1,000, putting that into a business bank account, and then using that for your ad spend. The sales that you generate from that ad spend can then be reinvested back into more ad spend and scalability. And that's also what you'll use to purchase your products, right? Because the process is, customer pays you, you pay supplier, supplier ships product to customer. So you never have to put the cash up front, maybe for like the first order, because it takes a couple of days for Shopify to pay out. But, past that point, the customer always pays for the product. So it's low risk in that sense, because you don't have to upfront purchase loads of stock and loads of inventory like many other business models. So all in all, if I include the cost of the Shopify theme as well, because like I mentioned, that's where the store is hosted. I recommend a theme that costs about $250. It's a one-time purchase. After that, you're done. But there are also free Shopify themes out there that you can use as well. So total cost, if you are to buy a theme, I guess about $1,250 for ad spend, theme, and then about $35 a month of ongoing subscriptions. If you don't want to use a Shopify theme, then I guess just the initial upfront for the ad spend, about $1,000, which is next to nothing for launching a business. You know, when you think of the potential, it's you're not going to get a lower cost business model than that.
I mean, let's just drop the numbers over here, which is just once again share how much you spend on your brand that is now past $1 million in revenue and 44% in net profit. How much did you start that business with?
Yeah, exactly. $1,000. So followed the same process that you guys, I'm explaining to you guys now. So I sent $1,000 into my business bank account and then used that for ad spend. And since then, I've not invested any more capital into the business.
Name me a better business model. Like, just try. Like,
well, yeah. I mean, if you think of the profit, that's like what would that even be? $1,000, like a 440% return on the $1,000 that I put in. Yeah. 44% net profit.
Yes, yeah.
So
it's wild.
Yeah.
But it's key, I guess, in your knowledge of it, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Which also leads us to the next question, which is, how is your mentorship program different than from just people watching YouTube and just doing it alone? Because they can also do that, right? There's a lot of content out there. Your YouTube videos are really good, like really in depth. They explain the method very well. Even right now, just really explained very well. So the question is, what is the difference?
Well, there's a few fundamental differences, okay? My YouTube channel or anyone else's YouTube channel isn't designed to take you from A to Z, okay? More often the time, we'll share information, but putting that information into a structure that someone can actually follow step by step is more challenging, and that's where people get stuck, because they'll often listen to multiple creators. One guy says do X, another guy says do Y, another guy says do Z. So you're on YouTube, you're consuming this information and it's conflicting, which then leads to what I call analysis paralysis, where you don't know what to do because there's so much conflicting information. You just find it difficult to move forward because you're like, wait, do I do this or that? Because this guy said that thing, this guy said that thing. So it leads to confusion. So that's one thing with YouTube. If you are going to use YouTube and attempt to tackle dropshipping on your own or building an e-commerce business, just make sure you find one source of truth. Once you're experienced and your store is live, sure, start picking or cherry picking information, but just be very careful what you listen to as absolute truth, okay? So find one source and just stick to it. And that's often what I say to people when joining the program. Forget everything you think you already know about ecom. Please just do me that for the next 3 months while you're working with me, because you'll know you've joined previous mentorship programs.
I had so many preconceptions that I had to go off the window, before like actually implementing what you're teaching.
Yeah. So there's that. Then also inside of the program, first of all, the information is provided in a step-by-step format, which takes you from a complete A to Z. There are many tools, tricks, discounts, promotions, things that people can leverage that aren't otherwise given away for free on YouTube, because I have to reserve some things for obviously the paying members, but it's designed to remove all of the friction, to take someone from beginner to generating and building a successful e-commerce store as quick as possible. So the way in which the information is laid out is sequential. It takes people on a journey. It allows them to move very quickly, and any moment they have any doubt, they can reach out for one-to-one support or join the weekly group calls as well. So we have a lot of opportunity to address problems very quickly when they come up, so people can keep moving forward fast. Keeps people accountable. We can check in with them. We can make sure they're progressing. So it's more than just learning from a free video. It's a step-by-step roadmap with accountability and guidance that can remove any doubts or fears that people have. We all need coaches for certain areas in life. I even said to you recently, I think, if I wanted to eat really clean, I feel like I should probably just get a coach to keep on top of my diet and my nutrition, because it's very easy to go, I'll just eat this today, or, I'll come off my diet today, because I've got no one keeping me accountable. And accountability is really important. And that's also what you get with the program as well.
Yeah. I want to say that for me, it was the most useful was just having you look over my decisions and be like, you get this certainty.
Yeah.
You not only get clarity, but you get certainty around the process. So when you're learning this, like, should I do this? Should I do that? And you say this, right? So you're very clear in the instructions. So I think that's extremely beneficial. Like that's the biggest return, I guess. And just having you answer any type of questions that I might have, the answer. Okay, perfect. Like ask GPT and you might get, confusing answers. So
Yeah, for sure.
clarity, certainty, I would say. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also actually what leads me to another thing, that you don't necessarily only show how to do things, you also explain why.
Yeah.
Which I think is very different, because that allows you to become independent after you join the program. You learn, and for example, me now, I feel way much more confident about launching another brand because I know now that all the puzzles, and it's been only a few months to do that. So I think that's also like a big thing.
For sure. For sure.
And yeah, another question is, what results can I realistically expect, and in what time frame, if I'm starting from absolute zero as a new beginner?
Yeah. I like to be as realistic as possible, right? So I'll actually mention some existing results that students have achieved on average inside of the program, the Google Ads Ecom Academy. Most students are joining as complete beginners, okay? Many of them similar backgrounds to myself in construction. Some of them are parents. Some of them are working multiple jobs, None of them necessarily have e-commerce experience. We have a few guys who have joined, like yourself, who had a previous mentorship program, other guys that have been in ecom, maybe done some meta stuff, but never Google, right? But the majority of students are complete beginners. Typically, a beginner is joining and generating their first sale in as little as 4 to 6 weeks. So that's joining the program, doing the product and market research, sourcing the products using our private agents, setting up their business, building their website, launching their Google Ads campaigns, and generating their first sale in as little as 4 to 6 weeks. Now, does that mean that someone can't come in and do it in 2 weeks? No, it doesn't. Maybe there's someone who has more time, they're more efficient, and they can get stuff done more quickly. So 4 to 6 weeks is like the average. There are people that blow way past that. We've had students that went from 0 to 500,000 in 4 months, 0 to 300k in 3 months, 0 to 120k in 3 months. So like we've had exceptional results of people that have come in and done things very quickly. So to say, one sale in 4 to 6 weeks might not sound like a lot, but that's like the average complete beginner coming in doing everything. And then, week 6 to 12 is where they start to scale up, build some momentum, start working towards about 10k per month and beyond.
Yeah, but it's also a skill set that you learn and you keep in your head, right? Like some people take like 7-10 years to become a doctor, to have a profession that will pay for them. And we are in 2026. The reality has changed. You need to have different skill sets, and that's that high income skill set is literally that, how to build those kind of stores. And e-commerce will be here, dropshipping will be here. Like even if AI comes down and takes over the jobs, like it doesn't take over the ecom itself, it will only boost you, right? So it's like also bulletproofing yourself, I think, for the future, just gaining that skill set. That's what I think about it.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing I will add that people often forget is e-commerce is actually a physical business. People think it's only online. No, we've been able through dropshipping to be able to leverage it as an online business with no in-person involvement from us, no physical presence, but the customer is still getting a physical product. So it's actually still, in many senses, a physical business. And while there are many things that AI can replace, it cannot replace the customer actually getting that product, building the brand, building the product, understanding customer satisfaction, and developing it on things over time. So in many senses, I do believe ecom is AI proof, but the right people that know how to leverage it correctly, like we do inside of the program and me and you do on my own business, are the ones that are truly going to be able to get ahead. And that gap from beginner to advanced is going to get more and more bigger in some senses, because you're going to have new people coming in having to learn everything. But the guys that get started right away and start to leverage AI are the ones that are going to really get ahead in the years to come,
And that's why I think that what we do also in the program now, the newest updates, is so focused on how to leverage the AI and crush it basically. So,
exactly.
Awesome. One of the last questions that we're going to go through in this video is an interesting one, and I like it. I'm kind of curious what you're going to respond to that. There is a lot of mentorship programs out there, and a few of them that teach also Google. What makes this one different?
The teacher. Because there's many different ways to do Google Ads dropshipping. There's many different ways to do Meta Ads dropshipping. There's so many different ways to do the same thing, and people often bundle everything together just because we're using the same fulfillment method that is dropshipping. But the difference is what we're doing is building e-commerce businesses. The way in which you build an e-commerce business is going to come down to the person that's building it. So if you look at some of these people that have coaching programs and look at their existing stores, and again, not to speak for everyone, but you'll notice a lot of them are maybe selling fashion or other low ticket products. Yeah, low ticket, low quality junk, at least in my opinion. Not a brand that they're proud of, but just something that pays the bills. And if that's your method, that's fine. But check out the Trustpilot pages of most dropshippers. It's littered with 1-star reviews, negative reviews, no customer support, no one answered the phone, it's a scam, product was faulty, no one allowed me to send it back, boom, boom, boom. You can read hundreds and hundreds of reviews. And if these guys are doing business in this way, and then they're going to teach you how to do business in that way, you're learning from a faulty method, at least in my opinion. And listen, like I say, if you want to do that, that's fine. But that's the difference. I'm teaching people how to build actual brands that they can be proud of. Like I said earlier in this conversation, we attract people who are authentic. Many people inside the program, they're a certain type of person, right? They want to actually make a change in their life. They want to build a business that they're proud of, that they can sit there and go, you know what, I built that. Not that I'm drop shipping dresses to people in Europe from China and it's low quality junk, you know, it's different. So that's what I would say. I think it comes down to the teacher and the strategy and the method. There's many different ways to do ecom, but I believe that I teach it in the right way.
I would agree.
I appreciate it.
Cool. To end off this video with just a last question regarding 2026. We are in March 2026. What is your current plan for 2026 and your brand?
Well, as you know, I've brought you in on the brand. I see a lot of potential in the things that you're doing, the way that you conduct yourself, and you're a good round, someone that can become good at everything very quickly, I think, which is really important when it comes to e-commerce and having someone you can trust when building a brand. So I believe together and with some of the new team members that we've brought on and the stuff that we're doing, we'll be able to scale my store pretty far. At the moment, like I say, in December, it did $312,000 in revenue. Again, still very, very strong margin. Like, I don't remember the exact margin for December, but it would have been about 40% or maybe higher.
I think it was 46, was it?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
But I think it's actually a very important point. Like the revenue number is that cool, but the profit, what is the money that hits your pocket?
Yeah.
That's what I love about this, you know.
100%. 100%. Well, it's not 100%. It'd be good if it was. It's about 40 to 50%.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, profit margin crazy high. That's followed through to January and February, around about 200K per month. So it seems to be stabilizing around that level. Like I mentioned, recently I've been guilty of not really working on the store that much. You know, I also have a podcast, I have a coaching program. A lot of my time goes into teaching other people how to do this as well, like yourself and all of the other students in the program, as well as making YouTube content and so on and so forth. But I want to spend more time on the brand. That's also why I wanted to bring you in to help with some of the fulfillment on some of the things and really scaling it to the next level. And I think $500,000 a month is within reach. I don't believe that that's far away at all. Just need to implement the right things in the right places. I've already built out an exact strategy on how to do that, which we'll be executing on real soon. But the goal for Q1 was to focus on hiring, systemization, outsourcing, delegating. Now that we've dialed all of that in, or as I continue to do that over the next few weeks, the next step will then be to dial in on the ecom brand and start scaling it further. So that's the plan. For those that are new to the channel, I documented my entire journey of building this brand, by the way. I took it from $0 to $10,000 a month in just 32 days. I started the challenge back in May of last year. I then showed my journey from scaling it to $0 to 100K per month. And I guess now I'll be documenting the journey of taking it from 100K to 500K per month. And we'll keep you guys tuned as we go.
Nice. Cool. Thank you.
So I guess that's it in terms of the questions that you had here today. Those of you that watched the video, I hope this has allowed you to get perhaps one step closer to building the life and the type of freedom that you want. I hope it allows you to cut through the noise and a lot of the misconceptions you may or may not already know about dropshipping and what other people out there are teaching. But for those of you that, like Matt, like myself, like the other members we have inside of our academy, want to build a real business, want to actually build a brand that separates yourself from the typical dropshipper with 1-star Trustpilot reviews, if you want to build a brand that you're actually proud of, selling high ticket products, launching a store, doing high ticket branded Google Ads dropshipping, which is exactly what we explained in the start. You want to join my program, work very closely with me with step-by-step guidance, coaching and accountability, as well as weekly group calls and one-to-one support, then see the link in the video description to learn more information. And yeah, we'll go from there. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure to like, subscribe and drop a comment. I really, really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.